Happy Bookmas Day 1! Oh my goodness, welcome. Hello, we are home. Isn't that crazy? It's already that time of year. We're back at home. It's Thanksgiving, y'all. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way. When you see this video, it won't be Thanksgiving anymore, but you already know what it is. Happy Bookmas Day 1! Oh my god, guys, I cannot believe it is Bookmas already. Now, last year, I didn't do Bookmas at all last year, so this is gonna be my first official year doing Bookmas with you guys, and I am super excited because if you can't tell already, I'm already in the Christmas mood. I'm in the Christmas spirits, even on Thanksgiving Day. And anyways, I am home and I am here for the holidays, of course, and of course, you know, what better day on Thanksgiving than to read 1-star reviews on my favorite 5-star reads. I don't know why I want to do this to myself. I really couldn't even tell y'all why, but I've been seeing so many YouTubers do this. Y'all already know BookTube is on the roll and it has so many different trends, and of course I'm here to jump on the bandwagon. But I picked out 6 books that I really love and that I have read this year actually, and I'm going to be reading 1-star reviews on all of them. Now, may this hurt my feelings? Probably, most likely, but am I still gonna do it? Most definitely. So we're gonna go ahead and do it. Of course, I'm going to be using Goodreads to go ahead and look through the reviews, and I truly have loved all 5 of these books. Now, some of you may not, and I completely understand if that is the case because everybody has their own opinion and they're all entitled to it, and I'm not taking that away from you. Actually, one of these books I did not read this year, but I'm just going to do one of the books out of this series in which I did read this year. So the first book we're starting with is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. Now, this book has a lot of, you know, ups and down kind of criticism on it. It has some people who really love this book like me. There's those people who really hate this book like the people I'm about to read. So hopefully, you know, I don't get taken down too hard for the book I love, but I'm probably going to read about 5 to 6 reviews per book. So we're going to see how I feel with Things We Never Got Over. By the way, if you're not following my Goodreads, you definitely should. I post reviews on almost all of my books, and I think I'm gonna go back at the end of the year and put reviews in for every single book that I did read this year. But if you're not following, the link is down below in the description box. Ooh. You know, a 36-year-old woman did not call a dick a magical wand that casts orgasm spells and a weapon of mass destruction. Makes sense. Her bae is a 43-year-old man that acts like a 3-year-old having a temper tantrum. Update. I finished and I hate men. Wow. That's a very strong first review, I'm not gonna lie. I truly was not expecting that to be the first review. I didn't even read it. I just tapped on whatever one I seen first, and this was the one that came up. And low-key, I'm like, ooh, I am not ready for the rest. So, do I particularly remember this line? No. But does that line sound astronomically crazy? Yes. Yes, he was a complete a-hole the whole time. But it wasn't like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, red flag seems green from like pretty far away, you know? You're in your 40s and decided to pee in your backyard. I mean, men do that anyway. Like, I don't think that's weird. I think men on a regular occasion do that because if they don't have a place to pee, they can just pull out and just pee. Next, stupid. The way I lost all my brain cells with this book. These people are apparently 36 and 43, but they talk and act like children. Everything was so cartoonish, from the way they interacted with each other and others. Like, what? Goes to show you when the youngest character in a book, who is 11 years old by the way, is by far the most mature character here. I hated it. Probably will never get over how bad this was or the time I spent with this sad book. Okay. I will say one thing, that I did feel like Layla was the most mature person. Maybe because I feel like she went through a lot more, but I don't also think that the adults were all childish. I just think they had a lot of grudges, to be honest, and jealousy. And low-key, in this town, since it's like a small town romance, in this town they have certain rules, like certain stuff can happen. And I guess it's just a different feel. I guess not everybody goes for that, but personally, I enjoyed it. I'm taking it like a champ, y'all. That was the 3rd one, so let's move on to 4, 5, and 6. If I even make it that far, you know what I'm saying? The amount of millennial humor toward coffee should be a crime. This seems fun. Did I read the same book as everyone else? How this has even remotely close to a 5-star review is horrifying. The dialogue in this book made me want to scratch my eyeballs out. It was so nauseating. The only reason I didn't quit on this is because I'm too competitive and wanted to check another book off the 2022 list. Do yourself a favor and skip this book and any sort of sequel that comes after it. How rude. Okay, it's okay to have your opinion, but don't try to stir everyone away, you know. I personally love the dialogue. I love the banter. Like, as soon as I turned to page 1 and started reading, the banter was there. And I literally love banter. Banter is like my favorite kind of thing in a book. So I personally liked it. Alright, so this is gonna be the last one for this book. Welcome to today's episode of Criminally Overrated Books. Here we have runaway homeless bride appears in small town and conveniently gets everything handed to her by a hero man child, Knox, and is told she is the best thing that ever happened to him, even though she constantly gets herself into trouble and needs things. Featuring the most pointless breakup I have literally ever read. A nosy town full of people way too invested in this couple's business and literally turn against him when he breaks up with her. Soap opera evil twin with no redeeming qualities. Overly mature 11-year-old who has basically the same name as a dog, Waylon TF. A laughable villain. Unrealistic dialogue from the male friends of hero. Okay, girl, I can't read this anymore. It's up on the screen. I can't read it anymore. It's literally making me crazy. Anyways, first of all, honey, check your grammar before you start writing things like this, because like, why can't you actually write? Number 2, I don't think Waylon was overly mature because, like I said, at 11 years old, she went through a lot of stuff. And personally, when I was 11 years old, I was doing the same stuff she was doing. I was just saying whatever out the blue because I was also very mature. But she's a very smart girl as well. So I don't think she was just too mature. She was a very smart girl. She had potential. And I think that she would be an amazing adult if I got to see her in another book. But yeah, I don't think anything was too crazy. I don't know why people hate on Waylon. Personally, she was my favorite character out of everybody. And also, it's a small town, so everybody is technically nosy. So if you don't get the small town thing, people are usually nosy anyway. It's giving Gilmore Girls, like where everybody in the town knew everything about everybody. That's how it works. I live in a small town. It's literally everybody knows everything about everybody. Small towns work like that in real life and in books, so it's not unrealistic. All right, so I took one for the team for those first 6. I don't think they were too crazy or too bad. On to the next book in this video. We have On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. I love this book hands down. I personally think this is like such a beautiful book, and I just hands down, this was like my favorite book that I read in the month that I read it. It was beautiful, it was heart-jerking, it was tear-jerking at that, it was heartbreaking, it was everything about the heart. First and foremost, it was mentally challenging to get through. There was a lot. Even though under 300 pages, this book did some things to me. So let's talk about the 1 stars of the book that literally made my heart break and literally I cried my eyes out to, and hopefully people aren't too mean. I couldn't have been more excited for this book, which might be why I was so disappointed by it. There are a magnificent relationship in these pages, but the prose is so overwrought, so consumed with itself, and it's continually getting in the way of them. There are bad metaphors, overextended metaphors, obvious metaphors, and clunky, strangely essayistic passages. And it's a shame because it all prevented me from assessing the raw heart of this story. I understand a lot of people thought this book was kind of repetitive, but also at the same time, this book is a book about somebody's feelings and thoughts and personally and internal like thoughts about stuff that happened to them. I've seen this book described as raw, but I think undercooked might be a better description. The ingredients are there. The prose is quite nice in its way, and the images and scenarios described should be devastating. Somehow the writer takes all of that, delivers it in a way that feels totally devoid of urgency or meaning. I keep coming back to the word soulless. I think that's the best way I can sum up what I feel. This book feels as though it was written in a way that the author thought it was supposed to be written, and not as a vehicle bringing the story to life. To describe this book as soulless is actually kind of crazy. Like, what do you mean soulless? This book is definitely a raw story. Like, if you, I don't know, when you're reading like a memoir or something like that, you truly have to understand that some thoughts and feelings are going to feel like they're the same thing or underwritten. But also it's really hard sometimes to write fully about an experience, even when you write a book about it, because sometimes it's just so much internally that you're still having to deal with when writing a book like that. I felt like this book was beautiful, and I don't think it was soulless, because personally, if you're soulless, you just didn't cry. Because I cried my eyes out a great amount of times with this book, and it was so beautiful. Speaking my truth and giving up on this at 45%. I am not enjoying this at all, and I dare I say it is some of my least favorite writing I've ever come across. Wow, okay. It feels like a collection of superficial sentences rather than a cohesive narrative. I typically enjoy when poets write books, but in this case it felt more like Vuong used the opportunity purely as a way to showcase his writing chops. The result is a collection of corny sentences and quotes that made me physically cringe. Sometimes about the way his mother and his grandmother are portrayed felt vaguely exploited. I'm not quite sure how to articulate this. Vuong's experiences are important and I don't want to diminish their impact, but some of the voyeuristic scenes of his mother and grandmother's early life felt uncomfortable. Maybe these events are explored more in the back half, which I didn't read, but that is my initial impression from the first half. I personally thought this book was amazing. It was beautifully written. I feel like there was nothing wrong with the way he wrote about the grandmother and the mother, only because when he was writing about their experiences, I truly felt that. Like, it made me think about, and I think I said this before in one of my wrap-ups, but I felt like personally it was written in a way that it should have been, and maybe not deeply internalized because he didn't get it from his grandmother or his mother's perspective, but he wrote it from the way he's seen it. So I'm just gonna move on because people are hurting my feelings genuinely with this book, and I feel like I'm taking a hit from the author. And I feel like because this is like based off of like nearly real life events in another way, I think people shouldn't judge too hard because this is just his feelings on his story. So all right, moving on to something I feel like is a beautifully written book and is wonderful and is such a perfect read. This one is Nora Goes Off Script by Annabel and Monaghan. I love this book, and I don't know if you guys remember, I think I read this in a 24-hour reading vlog maybe. I don't remember which video I read it in. It might have been a reading vlog, most definitely though, and I did do it in my wrap-up, of course. This hates, I don't care what nobody says. For people that hate this book, I actually have to probably fight them, box them or something. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do that. Not to yuck someone else's yum. Over 40k people's yum apparently. But this is the worst book I've ever read in a long time, which is so mean to say, but OMG. Should have been a DNF for me. Here are some thoughts I had while reading. Why did a grown man yell at a child? Nora girl, begging you to go to therapy because going and saying that he left to do his job after only knowing him for 3 weeks is concerning. Matter of fact, put the kids in therapy too. Speaking of kids, maybe I just don't know how 8 to 10-year-old function or act, but they function and spoke like adults. Also, they made the 8-year-old carry a table. Fully grown adults having a relationship of 2 middle schoolers. They also have no chemistry. One phone call would have solved all this. I really hate these kind of books. Maybe this writing style just isn't for me. Found that nothing flowed. It left me thinking, how did this even happen? Because what do you even mean 2 seconds ago they were still working out their misunderstanding and now they're married? I don't know what it is about people, but every time that a kid enters a book, they feel personally attacked. Like the children can't be mature at their age. Do y'all not see the kids these days? Let's be for real. Like, why are people so upset about this? Like, you have issues and that means you need to go to therapy too, just like you told everybody else. Now I do understand that Nora probably most likely should have went to therapy after having broke up with her husband and everything like that, and also having her 2 kids in therapy. Yes, I agree with that completely, because I feel like that would have helped them a lot more, because the son was like closed up and then the daughter was like, you know, happy-go-lucky, but she also had a lot to say. She was a smart mouth. But I feel like those are kids anyway. Now let's be for real. 8 and 10 years old, I know how 8 and 10 year olds act, but they definitely did not act like adults. They act just like kids the way they are. Okay. Bland, boring, repetitive, zero chemistry, etc, etc. Okay, first of all, let's talk about bland, boring, repetitive. Like, what? It was not bland, nor was it boring. I felt like the plot was there. She's a Hallmark writer. She just writes these little sappy stories and everything. I feel like it was very much chemistry there because they bonded. I know that was like 3 weeks. I know this might seem crazy, but like, yes, 3 weeks, I feel like sometimes is enough to get to know somebody, especially if you have good chemistry. So therefore, they did have good chemistry because they loved each other within 3 weeks. Anyways, we're not gonna act like I just crashed out. This was the most boring book I have truly ever read. The characters were so bland. There was zero chemistry and romance. Literally fade to black. I thought I was missing pages after it skipped to them suddenly getting together and falling in love. It was so repetitive. I was convinced that I was just reading the same chapter over and over again. Where was the plot or anything remotely engaging? Unless you want to read about them waking up, having coffee, asking what's on for the day, and then going to bed for 200 pages, do not read this book. Also, the ending has a bad joke. Like, I just laughed out loud. I don't think this was like repetitive. Like, I just don't understand how people thought this was repetitive. It wasn't. There was stories in there. It was like connections between the schools, the kids, the play, all those good things. I don't know what people are talking about. Personally, I like the engine and the conversation. Like, there was so much plot. What do you mean there was no plot? Like, are you okay? I personally don't think people are okay if you're saying that there was no plot, because personally, if there's no plot to the story, there would be no story. First DNF of the year. We're not even a weekend. I'm not sorry though. One of my goals for 2023 is to read more on my physical TBR. This has been sitting on my shelf for a few months now. It looks short and cute. It was unfortunately incredibly bland. That good readings had some. I was behind it. I'm not gonna lie. Wow, that was just me. First of all, I personally don't think that this book was like for this person. Like, if you don't like these kind of books, why are you reading it? You're literally wasting your time, first and foremost. That is one problem you may need to fix before you start reading books like this. This might not be for you. DNF at 20%. I just couldn't get into this. Nora is so bland and boring. She and the entire story lack. Nothing goes into that much detail or has any spark or chemistry, especially between her and Leo. It just wasn't a fun read from the get-go and felt quite negative and sad, but without any progress or reward. The writing felt choppy and too matter-of-fact. Thanks to Net Gallery and the publisher for the free preview in exchange for an honest review. First of all, I just think this is flat out crazy, because when people read only 20% into a book, do you really think that's where you... I think sometimes, yes, that's where you can get your full-on opinion from, but sometimes it's just not valid because you didn't read the rest of it. It wasn't a sad story. I personally was kicking and giggling, you know what I'm saying? Kicking my feet, giggling, and you know what I'm saying? I love this book. I thought it was great, personally. I don't think there was anything wrong with this book. I thought that their love connection was great. Chemistry was chemistry, and personally, I think everything worked out the way it was. It wasn't quite negative. It was quite positive towards the end. I know there was some crazy stuff going on, but again, it was just a short little summer read. Maybe I might change my opinion later. Who knows? But this just makes me feel bad. So we're moving on to the next book. Oh, no, this is another book that wasn't done this year. This was a last year book, but this is also one of my tops. This is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is part of the, you know, Dreamland Billionaire series. I love this series. There's only one book that I truly hate, and you already know my feelings, okay? Like, oh my gosh, like, what do you mean? Like, what? I love the connection between Ro and Zara in this book. I personally thought it was beautiful. It was great. It was amazing. It was, everything was show-stopping, all of that great stuff. I thought their relationship was cutesy, very demure. I thought the Disneyland-esque kind of thing about this book is very much giving what it's supposed to give. There's somebody who's the director, you know, he's getting a second chance to run this place. He's facing his traumas. So is Zara. Zara's going through a lot of stuff, and you know the crazy thing, my name is Lazara and her name is Zara, and this is actually the way my name is supposed to be spelled in the Quran. Isn't that crazy fun fact? That's why I also love this book so much, because like, girl, why you my name? But it was a really great story. I personally thought this was a lot of spice as well though, and I technically don't like that anymore. Like, I'm not a spice girly anymore. Like, before I used to be the big spice girly ever. No, not anymore. I've turned my life over to Christ, and we don't do that no more as much. We only try to find books that don't have a lot. We try to do 1 to 2 spice level, you know. No spice for real. I don't like it. So I try to find a lot of books that don't look like this anymore, but this book back then was my stuff. Let's just say that. Now, I did hear a lot of things about this book being hated, so let's go ahead and get into some of these 1 stars and why people hated this, okay? First of all, book talk sensation. I need to stop believing my FYP. Yeah, For You page is literally sometimes a scam. It really is. Sometimes you just don't need to listen to it. If you think it's a book that you're truly not gonna like, I say don't listen to your FYP. This one's really funny. Here's a sequel idea. The Divorce Papers. Oh, he's literally Elon Musk. I don't have anything to say about that. I mean, it is true. They're all billionaires, so what do you expect? They all are a bunch of millionaires. I don't know what else you want me to say. This is the most artificial love story I've ever read. The forced connection between the main characters is despicable. Literally, what is going on? It's given Wattpad, and that is not a compliment. What is that? A woman who can talk back to a man? What a rare occurrence. So much so that she is extremely interesting. Not. Yeah, it's a grumpy ex-sunshine, but it sucked. The writing style reminds me a little bit too much of an economic textbook. Please stop. I don't want to be taken. The audacity of this man to talk absolute ish to her when she's in the hospital. No, because why was my heart breaking on her behalf when I don't even give a flip about this book? That is literally so rude, and I can just tell this person's completely heartless, because why would you say that? That's just horrible to say to someone. What if that person was real? Oh wait, she's dead. I mean, it was Grumpy X Sunshine, so Rowan was a little bit of an a-hole because he was an entitled billionaire. So I think that can come off as a little bit like he's just being rude all the time. And then there was other moments that was just like, oh, okay, like I can understand where this is coming from, being as though there's a lot of trauma dealing with his mother's death. I think Lauren Asher touched on a lot of different topics and grief and, you know, struggling with health and all kinds of things, you know. I think this book was beautiful. I personally don't think it was that bad, and people who say things like that, you got to go. Okay, this one seems a little bit better. Hopefully, I don't know. 1 star. DNF at 61%. I just couldn't do it anymore, and I have so many reasons. And I honestly skimmed through so many pages. I found myself on the last page in like 5 minutes, LMAO. It wasn't insta love like insta lust. That was already a big turn off for me. Like, slow down. This book would have been better if it was a slow burn. I have such mixed feelings toward the characters depending on the scenes, but mainly dislike. But I admit Rowan and Zara do have some cute scenes. I like the disability rep. I like Annie and Rowan's scenes. The writing was nothing unique. I feel nothing for them. I completely agree with loving Cal more. Cal is actually one of my favorite characters out of all of the 3. I personally love Cal's story. I love Rowan's story. There's that one brother that I just don't want to talk about right now. He literally stresses me out. Anyways, I'm stressed out about that. Yeah, I agree with the Cal part. I agree that Rowan and Zara have the beautifulest, cutest scenes. I think they were really cute. I thought they had a lot of cute scenes. The disability rep in here was amazing, and it was great that it showed that in the story. I like how they didn't just glimpse over that or anything like that. They actually got into it a little bit more. I think this book definitely can be counted as an insta lust because it kind of was, but I also don't think that was like the worst thing because that happens a lot in this world today. I think that's very realistic. I think sometimes that can happen. Of course, I feel a little bit butthurt about some of these, but I mean, it's not about me, it's about the book, and I understand that some people do have really crazy opinions. That one opinion though, like, girl, why would you say that though? Like, we gotta do better. Okay, moving on to the next book that I truly love, and y'all know why this baby is my favorite author now. You know what I'm saying? The Love Hypothesis. By Ali Hazelwood. We love Miss Gown. We love Miss Gown. Okay, she is that girl. She is that, you know, I love her. I love this book. I love the relationship. I'm blocking everyone who said this was a good book on Book Talk. Again, it's just another Book Talk recommendation. Some people don't like Book Talk reg, some people do. It's all about your preferences and what you like, and some people just really don't like Book Talk recommendations, and I think you should just stop listening to Book Talk. Finding out that this book was originally an Adam Driver Star Wars fanfic has really shaking things into perspective for me. I wish I had never known. Some scenes in this book haunt me way too much, not in a good way. If a guy could fit my entire, I'm not gonna read the rest of that, it's on the screen, but that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I didn't know about this. I didn't know it was a Adam Driver Star Wars fanfic at all. I didn't know anything about that. I don't think this even shakes anything into perspective because there wasn't anything too crazy in here. The spice wasn't too wild. I don't think this was like crazy. I don't. Reading 3 books about fake dating in 15 days was definitely not a good idea. Not that it was the only reason that this book got 1 star. It was a big one. The whole thing that started the fake dating here was unbelievable. I found the characters to be shallow, and I have read better books with this trope. This is quite valid, and I feel like this is like one of the first valid ones I found today. This is quite valid. I understand that some people just don't like books like this, and that is understandable. Sometimes the criterion in which people get into these fake dating relationships can be like kind of wild, but low-key it's a fake dating trope, and most of the time this is not realistic. This will never happen in real life most of the time. There'll probably be that 10% of the time that'll probably actually happen, but I don't think this is realistic, so hey, let's keep going. Okay, moving on. The love hypothesis, more like the hate hypothesis. Hate this book with everything I have. Book Talk will pay for its crime against false promotion. Again, this is just more the Book Talk hate. People hate books from Book Talk, and that can be understandable. We just gotta stop reading books from Book Talk that we just won't like. The worst part about this wasn't even how boring it was. It was the way the author tried to get... The worst part about this book wasn't even how boring it was. It was the way the author tried so hard to get woke points. While only one person of color was in the main cast, be as confident as a mediocre white man. I don't think the author was trying to get woke with the one character, and also I think it was the black man who said this. I don't remember if that was true or not. I don't know if Olive was the one who said this. I don't quite remember that. But yes, there was one person who was black. Okay, like, does that hurt your feelings that there was only one person, or does it hurt your feelings that there was one? Or I don't understand. I don't know where your hate comes from with this. I personally enjoyed it because, you know, friend groups are diverse, and, you know, not everybody has the same amount of friends. There was I think both of the friends were of color, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure where this person's trying to get at. I'll never forget overhearing one of my classmates in high school say that this book would be considered a classic in the future. I definitely don't think this book would ever be a classic in my opinion. I agree with that, but I still think it was a 5-star. I don't think it would ever be a classic though, because no. I feel like classics have a certain criterion that some of these books today do not have, and classics have a way different kind of perspective than the ones we read today. And I just think that the classics should stay classics, and this book will never be one of those. I personally agree with that. I think that is completely true. Anyways, moving on. Extremely unsatisfactory. The main characters are supposed to be scientists, but seem to think that the solution to their problems is to fake date as opposed to having adult conversations with their friends. Goodness, if this was a representation of actual scientists, I would beg to exist at this earth ASAP. Here is the last and final book of my reviews that I'll be reading, but we had Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Lies, guys. It is not Malibu Rising. It's Carrie Soto is back. I literally forgot which one it was. I thought I was going to rate Malibu Rising a 5. I think that book was actually a 4.75, so it's very close, but it was actually this one. Carrie Soto is back. No, this one had me this year. Now, this was a beautiful... Taylor Jenkins Reid is an amazing writer, and I don't think there'll be a book that I'll hate by this woman ever in my entire life, because all of her books are so good. Like, I cannot wait to continuously read her books. All of her historical fictions eat. This one was truly an amazing one because it shed some light on some traumatic events that can happen. I personally love this book because it really showed Carrie's personality and just how triumphs and trauma can be such an impact on a person, and how not having a mother figure can actually impact a young woman in every way possible. And sometimes when you don't have either or one, you just lose it. And as a person, there's a reason you need to parent, and this has definitely showcased that. I'm glad not too many people hated this one, actually. I'm very happy about that. DNF at 32%. Absolutely adore TJR, and I have and will read everything she writes, but this I just can't finish, as per the usual of this author. But there was a few things that just didn't work for me. Carrie's father repeatedly speaks Spanish at length. TJR makes no attempt to offer any translation or explain what was said. Readers who aren't fluent will be left clueless. Did I miss something important? Did TJR insert a hidden gem? I'll never know. Also, this book is about tennis. Not tennis, but all caps tennis. As in the entire book, to the point I threw in the towel, is about tennis. There's no drama, no mystery, no plot. There is just a history of a tennis career. So unless you really love tennis, you're going to get really bored really fast. I can understand that a lot of people actually hated this because it was a lot of Spanish in it, and I get that, because sometimes Spanish can be like, what in the world, girl? Why do we have so many like Spanish dialogue and nobody is telling you what's going on? But also, it's a lot of context usage, and I think that's where a lot of people don't like to use it, because honestly, when we read for fun, but also sometimes you have to use context clues and read between the lines. And personally, that's how I did it, because I had to look at what Carrie was saying and then look at what was happening before, and you can put the pieces together. Also, there's such things called as a translator. Use your phone, Wookie. So I think that's just one thing that you could do, but there was a lot of context clues, and sometimes Carrie actually didn't translate it. I'm just going to come right out with it. This book was awful. The writing is bad, the editing is worse. There is no character development, and the story is flat. Reading this book was a struggle and a disappointment after her other book. I would give it no stars if I could. First of all, to say that TJR's books are not written well is actually crazy, because I think a lot of people actually have read a lot of her books because of her writing. Her writing is wonderful. Her editing is great. The editors do an amazing job. I don't think there's anything wrong with those. I love tennis, and I think TJR did a great job of visualizing it in the book, but it felt like it was trying so hard to be a movie transcript. More thoughts to come. And honestly, think she does write a lot of things like a movie transcript, because that's just how in-depth her book writing is. Like, she writes so deeply into her characters. Every single character is well-rounded. There's not one person left out. I think that could be a bit tedious for some people to read and just don't want to do it, and that's understandable. I've been at 24% for months now. Months. I just could not get into this story. I was bored. Maybe one day I will come back to this, but as for now, it goes bye-bye. I think that's really crazy. Sometimes we can be at one point in the book for so long, and that's understandable. And I think that can be in the case of you feeling a certain way, or you just not in the mood to read it. Completely understandable. If this was the first TJR book I ever read, it would also be the last. The fact that I have read all of them is the only reason I finished it. This one is so bad and so different than any of the others. It's like it's not even written by the same author. I kept waiting for it to get interesting, but page after page of sports stats instead of plot and the soulless main character makes this book a hard pass. I'll let others speak to the POC issue other than to say that it is an issue. The main character name-checking another TJR novel as well as the cover with denomination speaks to an ego greater than the massive font size. I think that this can be interpreted as like the POC kind of thing was like annoying for some people because it was a lot of Spanish talk again, and I feel like her mentioning another book was not really that weird, so I'm just gonna skip over it low-key. Moving on to the last one, here it is. First off, I want to thank at Net Gallery, at Pink and Random House Canada, at Taylor Jenkins Reid for my free art copy in exchange for the honest review. DNF at 15%. I just couldn't do this one. I love TJR and her writing, and I will read anything she writes, but this one left me feeling bored. The storyline I did not enjoy and was repetitive, and the main character I felt no attachment to. Again, this is a completely valid opinion, it just wasn't for you. Like I said, this book is mainly about tennis and stats and all of those things, and then it leads up to her training and then getting back into the game. So I feel like this definitely can be like a lot of people like, this is a lot of tennis, I don't want to read this. I personally love the tennis. So this literally goes without saying, I'm so glad I am done with that. I don't know why I decided to torture myself today. I was watching a lot of booktubers today, and I'm glad that I got to see the other side of what people think about my favorite books. But I'm so happy this was the first day of Bookmas, and I of course will see you guys tomorrow with another Bookmas video. But first, comment down below what should we do, guys? The Christmas tree emoji if you made it all the way to the end of today's video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time I post a new video. And of course, stay tuned with Bookmas. I will have a playlist linked down below. Of course, you already know. And remember to be true and be you. And I love you guys so much. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Mwah.